this is the parlor, and this really became where magicians did their parlor tricks. And I'm curious about like when that started, if you have any knowledge of that, because I'm actually like, when did the parlor trick?
Because that's a phrase people have heard.
Yes,
it's like a
absolutely.
parlor trick.
Parlor tricks.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, there have always been parlor tricks.
Sure.
Because there have always been magicians since at least the late 1800s, early 1900s, that would gravitate towards, for instance, card tricks. Card tricks are so popular because you can throw a deck of cards in your pocket and there's so many things you can do with it. Stand up in a parlor and do a card trick and you're doing parlor tricks. In contrast to today, you'd have the David Copperfield, you'd have the Penn and Teller, the stage magicians. So parlor tricks would really be tricks that you could do close up.
Right.
And probably among magicians, close-up magic is the vernacular that would be used, but it's kind of close-up, and then it's stand-up, and then it's stage.
Right.
And so I would have to say, for sure, at the turn of the century, it was still heavily stage, but right after the turn of the century, it went towards close-up. And you started getting, in Chicago, you started getting in the 1920s and 10s, bar magicians, people who would serve drinks and do magic behind the bar.
Oh, interesting.
And it was brought closer to but that was the same time when the persona of the magician changed. Instead of being the all-seeing, all-knowing master of energy you don't understand, they became illusionists. They weren't afraid to call themselves, they didn't try to make you believe they were actually floating a ball.
Right.
But you could enjoy the experience just as much.
And they loved that this house was the teaching grounds, if you will, for all these other magicians to learn and connect and socialize and
like a true
network.
workshop of
it really was a network.
It was a network. This is the hub of a network. Yes, that's what it was.
And they also, we just thinking about the episode that Maggie, that you just did with our genealogist and talking about family reunions. And through your storytelling about the history of this house, I can't help but think about the genealogy of the magicians in Omaha of this house, and try to mapping that out actually on a tree would be fascinating.
Yes. Because Walter Graham was the ringleader of this house. And I just don't know how many years he tried to convince me of what a big deal this was. And when you're in the middle of your career, you have big deals, but it doesn't happen to be an old house.
Right.
So he was, this is the great Dave. Do you understand what we have here? Do you understand? I'm sorry, Walt. I don't have the bandwidth to include an old house. And then as I retired, that was exactly culminating at the time when the house became available and Teller bought the house for the Omaha Magical Society. And then I had time to embrace and appreciate what he'd been trying to tell me for so many years. This is a gem.
Right. And the time is now, and
it was now, and I was available.
My understanding is that Teller of Penn and Teller, the famous magician duo, was involved in actually securing the house. Am I right on that?
You are so right.
Oh my gosh.
We knew of his interest in the house because he had done a book with one of our members on David Abbott. He had a 2-volume set that he had written on David Abbott. So when the house came up for sale in September of 2024, our board secretary said, I wonder if Teller would want to buy it. And the rest of us we shrugged our shoulders and said, go for it. And by golly, she got a hold of his business manager, got a hold of him. Suddenly I'm on a call with Teller, and he says, here's what I'll do. I'll buy the house. I'll put a lien on the house for what it costs me. And if in 2 years you can have it up self-supporting, self-sustaining, I'll forgive the lien. And we said, you got a deal.
Oh my gosh.
It was a gift. It was just a great gift.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you've done so much so far.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you all are the stewards now
Now
of
we're the stewards.
continuing this
Structuring
history.
it in such a way that this can go on for decades financially, and yet it can be enjoyed by our club members, because we have classes here every month. These are adult classes. Our junior magicians meet here once a month. Our kids coming up and learning tricks they can show their friends meet here once a month. And then we have special events. We bring through people who perform and speak at conventions. Magicians have multiple conventions a year, but there's a couple of national ones. And then you can see who's invited to speak at those and present at those. And those are the people we invite to Omaha. And what they do is they do an event for our members on a Sunday night where they just perform. We're bringing a fella in October who's just known for being the quintessential coin magician. So he can do with a set of coins, you go, what? And so he'll come here and perform for our members on a Sunday night, and then Monday night, he will come and lecture for the club. And so he teaches on Monday night and he performs on Sunday night. And we have 3 of those during the year for our members and then for our club.
I think before we get too much further, just for listeners who might not be familiar, who was David Abbott, and why is this house such a landmark in Omaha?
David Abbott was an active magician in the 1910s and 20s, and he was primarily an inventor because he and his brother were bankers, but he was a prolific inventor. He had so many interests besides magic, but magic, he delved deeply into it. And he invented and he performed in his house here. And those coming through, those magicians of the day, it would be a Houdini, a Thurston, a Blackstone, the big boys of that day, would perform at the Orpheum on the Orpheum vaudeville circuit. And they would always stop by because he was inventing things. They needed new material, and he was always creating new material.
Was he performing a lot of these, or is he more of the back end of like
he
kind of
performed
creating
them all. He
yeah.
performed all of his inventions. I'm sure some better and some worse. But then the guys who were professionals would come and go, oh, I could do something with that. And then he'd teach them, and then they would take it to the vaudeville circuit.
I love it.
Yeah.